Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 255 for June 12th, 2013. You might notice that we're missing a couple of people, but you've still got me, Jeremy Hellstrom.
And Josh Walrath.
And Maury Titleman.
And there is a Ken hiding behind the curtain, but he doesn't want to show himself. There he is.
Ken, so
Brian
cute.
is off having great fun at E3 and desperately trying to keep up with everything, but has currently decided that he doesn't like LA traffic very much and is just sort of sitting around relaxing and probably not watching the show.
I wonder
Al,
if
on
he's
the other
catching
hand,
rain.
is suffering from
And
cheesecake
if he
withdrawal.
got sunscreen.
Duck lips? Again?
No.
Okay.
Oh, hey,
Snare.
Ken, stream's looping.
We're always loopy.
I don't
How
know.
can you tell?
There's a
Just
couple
continue with
guys-
the show. I'll figure it out.
But continue along. Essentially, the one non-news related story, but the actual review that we got up came from Josh, and a very impressively power-hungry chip from AMD. Also, it runs about 5 gigahertz. Josh?
Well, AMD did it. Those SOBs finally did it. I'm trying to channel my best Charlton Heston. It's not working anyway. Anyway, they've released a new processor. It is going to be delivered only to system integrators. And it's a 5 gigahertz turbo mode FX, what is it, the 9530?
9590.
9590. Apparently, this does, again, have the high-end turbo mode of 5 gigahertz. We don't know a whole lot of the technical details. We know it's a 4-module core. It's got the 8 megs of L3 cache. It's running the North Bridge at the stock 2.2 gigahertz. But we don't know what the stock clock of the chip is. I would assume it would be about 4.6 to 4.7. And then, yeah, when it goes into single, module mode, probably hits up to 5 gigahertz on certain occasions. Now, Knight, otherwise known as Dominic, from Australia, pointed out that it is using the new Turbo 3.0, which I reviewed in the Richland APUs. So this product, there's nothing new about it except kind of how they're tweaking it. They have adjusted some of the fabrication parameters with Global Foundries, but it's not a revision. It's not a new revision. Just the same Vishera core that we've seen, but they've tweaked it, and it seems like they activated a lot of the thermal modules, or testing modules on this chip that we saw implemented with Richland, and they're doing plenty of BIOS work to be able to support this chip. Again, it's only going to system integrators, so if you want one, you're going to have to buy a machine from these guys. And AMD is doing that because apparently it's around 220 watts TDP, so it needs some pretty hefty active cooling. Apparently, AMD is only sending this out with their own LCS system, liquid cooling system. Well, LCS system, that's like redundant. But anyway. They're sending without their own LCS to say, hey, this is the minimum that you need. And we don't know the cost of the part. We may see some OEM versions showing up on eBay, or some tray products, or bundle kits on Newegg, but it's not going to be a box processor. It doesn't seem like it's going to be one of the AMD LCS kits that we have seen with the previous FX 8150. So it's going to be interesting to see where these show up and when. I think Main Gear has got a couple of models that utilize this. But we're getting back into the gigahertz wars. Apparently, it performs around the same as the Intel i7 4770, but it's going to pull a whole heck of a lot more power, and it won't have QuickSync. Even though I guess apparently Intel degraded QuickSync again with this release, but still, it is a feature. So, what do you guys think?
I think it's going to be hot. I think it's going to be ridiculously hot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see system integrator systems with even maybe phase change cooling. That up to a couple years ago, you actually did have system integrators like not CyberPower, but and I don't remember what the name of them were, but a couple of them were using phase change, and that's kind of been abandoned for now. But I think with this chip, Intel's going to start beefing up their gigahertz, and you're going to start seeing those kind of. You're going to start seeing those kind of systems come back into favor again. I mean, the hardcore DIYers are still doing the dual phase change, or what is it, the dual tank phase change, two phase change, whatever. I forget what the name of them is. But there are a lot of people still doing phase change, but it's really only DIYers, no system integrators. With this chip, you're going to need. I doubt the AMD liquid cooling system is going to. It'll probably contain it, but barely. I mean, you're going to probably see some really hardcore cooling on this thing.
I don't know. I had the FX8350, and I took it up to, I think, 4.8, and it never got all that hot. I mean, 55 to 60 went overclocked at full load.
What were you using to load it up, though?
Gosh, Prime, Cinebench 11, a couple other things, and I never saw it go, I think, above 62. And that's a 4.8, and that's with all cores doing it, not the kind of turbo mode that AMD is planning to do. And it was not an excessive amount of voltage either. So
maybe they got to trick up their sleeve then, because I know Intel, even the Haswells.
Haswell is a frickin' hair curler when it turns on hot.
Yeah, those things hit. I've been seeing 80 to 90 at 4.6 with the Haswells, if you can even get that stable.
Yeah, I mean, AMD's got a pretty big die for this. It's not huge. And so just, in between having a 32 nanometer PDSOI, it seems like the thermal characteristics for the clock speed, especially with the redesigned Bashar cord, is not as bad as we were expecting. I mean, guys are taking these chips, and with only activating one module, I mean, they're getting above 8 gigahertz regularly. While Intel, I mean, they're hitting 6 gigahertz maybe with some really extreme cooling. So, yeah, I think in terms of power put in and the TDP out to clock speed, AMD is doing an okay job. And performance-wise, the thing that stinks is you've got this heavily overclocked processor. It's still pulling, a bunch of watts from the wall. It's dissipating 220 watts at max, worst case scenario. And it's still really only barely getting over 4770K speeds.
Well, they're still using 32 nanometer SOI, right?
Yeah, PDSOI.
Yeah, if they could. Well, did Intel ever go SOI under when they shrunk below 32? Were they on a different?
Nope. They did HK high K metal gate when they went to 32. Actually, I think they integrated that with 45 nanometer, and then they went down to 32. Now with 22, it's still HK metal gate, bulk silicon, and they have the 3D, the Tri-D gates, whatever they want to call it. Tri-gates, yeah. To kind of give better performance with that process node.
Well, I mean, if AMD is able to get those kind of temps on 32 nanometer SOI, if they can shrink that die somehow, and God,
well, that's a whole another topic of conversation, because they are going to 28 nanometer high K metal gate, but bulk silicon. So they're going to get a nice shrink of about 15 to 20% of the die size. So they're going to add a bunch more stuff to improve performance, capabilities, whatever. They're going to stay in the same kind of TDP range, but We don't know if they're going to go to, because right now 32 nanometer is what's called partially depleted SOI. And at about 28 and 22 nanometer, they have the option going with fully depleted SOI, which has a lot better characteristics when it comes to electrical signaling, transistor switching speed, heat production, leakage, stuff like that, while using planar structures instead of these, tri-gates or FinFETs as they're called outside of Intel. So, we're going to, the next generation, which will be Kaveri, based on 28 nanometers, it's going to be interesting to see where power consumption and thermals kind of go with this new process, because my gut feeling is that they're going to go FDSOI with 22 and 20 nanometer probably in about maybe a year and a half, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be nice, and hey, the gigahertz race was always amusing, to be honest. It was a lot of fun back in the day, so as long as AMD can, keep the speeds up, keep the price down, we should still see them around for a while. But, talking about AMD and about something else that everybody always loves, we are currently running a new contest. Ryan claims that he just discovered a pair of A10-6800K Richlands just lying around on his desk. So he decided to give them away to our readers and toss in a free copy of SimCity. So we're going to have two draws. One's going to be on the 17th. The second one will be on the 24th. And once again, it is incredibly difficult to try and join our contest to win. You actually have to go all the way to the website and put in a comment. We suggest you put in a proper email address so that we can get in touch with you. But you don't have to, because we'll just take the ones if somebody wins and they didn't give us an email address. So, head on over and make sure that you sign up if you haven't. And, if you want, try and put in a little note about what it is that you plan on doing with this. And although it may not get you any extra chances to win, you can always head over to our YouTube channel and catch up on the latest stuff that we've posted there. And, hey, maybe you'll learn something new. But apart from that, the only thing that's been going on has been Computex. And, well, it's been busy. For instance, we saw a new Baytrail tablet coming out of, well, not really a maker so much. I think it was an Acer Aspire that we saw, or at least that Ryan saw. And this thing is a tiny little machine, but it's capable of spitting out 4K resolution. Now, that's something that we're going to start to see a lot more of, because 4K TVs are coming significantly down in price, and if you know where to get them, you can get a decent-sized 4K monitor without too much of an investment, we'll say. But they also did a completely fanless tablet. So it's one of the hybrid type tablets, but the idea of just having a completely fanless system is something that people are really getting into now, because they suddenly realize that that whole idea of the netbook, which it's almost passive, but it's also passive in that you can't really do anything with it. With the Ivory Bridge tablets, these things actually have some significant power to them, and I mean, for the most part, if you can deal with the smaller form factor, you're actually going to have a pretty good experience with it. But the last thing that Intel pulled out, which was actually rather interesting, was a new Lenovo Android phone, which is using Clovertrail. So we finally got to see one of the new Atoms going, and Ryan did post up a little video that you can take a look at and sort of see a sneak peek of these various devices that he got, and maybe even a little bit of a peek at a Baytrail tablet.
Look at the size of the man holding that phone.
Yes. That's to make the phone look smaller.
Yes.
In fact, that's actually a tablet. That's one of the tallest men in the world.
And his hand is, 2 feet wide?
Yeah. But, I mean, if the ultra-mobile stuff isn't really your idea of what you like, Razer, who once was known for making mice and just sort of started making everything, was showing off something that Ryan absolutely fell in love with, the Blade. Now, this, in a way, resembles a MacBook, but in another way, it really doesn't.
The one they said it's thinner than a dime?
Yes.
But it's a dime that's held up on its side.
Still, technically.
Yeah,
but,
technically
as you
it
can
is
see from the
thinner than a
pictures,
dime.
it does not look like a full MacBook Pro. It has a very Razer look to it with a lot of green LEDs, a nice metal black outside to it. On the other hand, with a weight of about 4 pounds and a battery that you can't remove, it does have a little bit of Apple DNA in it to say. As far as the specs on this thing go, it's actually going to be sporting an i7 Haswell and a 765M GPU, along with 8 gigs of DDR3 and, hey, an mSATA SSD. So internally, it's going to be pretty brilliant. The 14-inch screen is 1600 by 900, so we've finally gotten into the 1366 era, at least for some of these. But it's something that Brian really liked. I don't know if you're going to want to spend the $1,800 that it's going to cost to pick it up, but if you're really into gaming laptops, this, and certainly there's been some positive comments and negative comments on the front page, but if you want a gaming notebook, I don't think you're going to do much better than this one recently. This thing is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's well integrated. I mean, it is small. It's got a nice spec to it. I'm kind of curious what battery life is. It's probably pretty bad.
Well, they're claiming
still.
6 hours for non-gaming workloads.
How many hours?
6 minutes. 6 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not horrific.
No, that's for non-gaming workloads. For gaming workloads, 6 minutes or so, probably.
Yeah, Haswell is, again, a pretty nifty power-sipping part when they kind of implement it in that. It's a power-producing part when it's in a desktop overclocked.
Now, Maury, I know that you love taking things apart, but how would you feel about assembling a video card that comes with a separate cooler?
Well, assembling stuff is the problem with that kind of stuff, and the one, I say this also about the Asus thermal armor kit too, is that anytime an end user has to assemble something, the manufacturer has to assume liability if something breaks while they're assembling that. So Gigabyte is really taking a big risk with this, sending a card out with a cooler that needs to be assembled, especially Titan. I mean, that's a $1,000 card.
Mm-hmm.
If the user breaks something, Gigabyte could say, "Oh, that's not covered under warranty." Then the user goes back and says, "Oh, well, I'm going to sue you," and they'll probably win because they'll go to court and the judge will say, "Oh, well, you said assembly required at home. Sorry," So that's the one caveat there. The cooler looked pretty cool. I mean, if it actually is up to the specs they say, 450 watts of power dissipation is, I mean, that's over
extreme.
A lot of water cooling ranges. That's crazy. I don't know how loud it's going to be. It's got 3 fans in it. They look, are they 120s or are they 140s? But
unless the Titan's bigger than I think it is, they must be 120s.
Yeah. So it's probably not too terribly loud. You can get probably about somewhere between 80 and 100 CFM out of a fan spinning at maybe a 120 millimeter fan spinning at 2,000 RPM, which is 30 to 40 dB, which isn't loud. So maybe they could do it. Maybe they could get that kind of cooling dissipation out of it at pretty good sound volumes. But I don't know. It could be just going back to the wind tunnel effect again. But that home assembly is risky on their part, especially with that kind of card, that kind of expense on a card. So,
which is kind of why AMD is not shipping these FX 9000 series to end users to hopefully get installed correctly with adequate cooling.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
They're not responsible for any fingers lost while testing the fans.
Well, I was thinking more of you guys remember in the old AMD days when you had the bare dies before they started putting the heat spreaders on them? If you weren't careful, you'd actually crack the die if you didn't put the little metal thing on it. I cracked quite a few in my day. Yeah, I mean that's the same thing. Those, the GPUs are all bare dies. They don't have heat spreaders on them. So if you're not careful, you're gonna crack. You're gonna crack your Titan and be crying over it.
Well, I thought NVIDIA still had a heat spreader on theirs.
I didn't. I thought they were bare. I didn't think. Well, last one. It's been a while since I cracked that card because I crack them when I put water cools on them. I'll be able to tell you definitely in another couple weeks because I got to crack my 670 to put the water block on it before QuakeCon.
I see, but you know what? I've been an AMD guy. I mean, okay, basically it's because I was poor.
Yep.
If I could have afforded better, I probably would have gone Intel for a lot of different years. But because I didn't have the money, I usually just bought AMD. And just kind of stuck with them. But I never had cracked one of the cores. I guess the way I put on the heat sinks, I was so worried about breaking it because I was so damn poor.
Or driving the screwdriver through the motherboard.
Okay, I did that once. And I was mad because that was like a tie-in dual Athlon MP board that was, $300, $400.
Yeah, speaking of cheap old chips, I was cleaning up my junk room. Remember these guys?
Focus.
Cyrix, IBM?
Cyrix? Yeah.
Cyrix
I remember
686.
those. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had one or two of those.
Yeah. I can remember when that was exciting because, hey, I could afford it.
Yeah. I know.
Ah.
Now look at you. You're rolling in the lap of luxury. You're taking day trips to Scotland to get whiskey.
And I have an Intel system. It's not just an AMD one.
I know.
Well, the graphics card is.
You're living
large. Now
you
you have to have an Intel system pretty much. I mean, it's AMD just isn't.
Oh come on! I got an X6 1100T overclocked to 3.8, and it runs everything fabulous.
Yeah, if you're playing Duke Nukem Forever or something, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
8-bit.
You're
maybe
right.
That's why your system goes to 8-bit.
Side scrollers.
It's going home.
It's only a 32-bit computer. Moving along, Jeremy.
Well, since we're talking about affordable AMD products, how about a 7970 GHz edition for? It was originally $420, and I just saw it on special in stock at an even $400. Not too shabby for a serious piece of hardware. Now, it would be nice if we could get some beta drivers so that we could buy two of them and enjoy them together, but I'm sure that is still coming.
Well, you can buy two and enjoy them, but you won't really get any benefit.
You only enjoy them if you really enjoy the run frames.
Yeah,
but I mean,
look at those skip frames. They're so smooth.
The one nice thing I will say about the Radeons is, well, I mean, they're not. The performance is great. Between AMD and NVIDIA, it's really a toss-up if you're on single card mode. But AMD really has the nice game bundle. I mean, you really no matter what kind of NVIDIA fanboy you are, you can't say that the game bundle with the AMDs is not a nice bundle.
Well, you're not a fan of the in-game currency for free?
And no, I think that's crap.
Metro Last Light is nice, but
yeah, that's nice.
But it's not like the 6 other titles you get from AMD.
No. Or the continuing new titles you get from AMD, even though you bought your card a while ago.
Yeah, they just announced Thief.
Yes.
Kind of excited about that.
Yeah,
I hope they don't mess it up.
For that.
I really hope they don't.
Yeah.
They could.
Anyway. But yeah, I mean, the price performance, the 7970s are very good as compared to the GTX 770s, and they hold their own against the 780s. But again, they're $200 cheaper, $250 cheaper than the 780. So you could buy a monitor and a half, maybe two monitors, for that price difference. So, yeah, sign me up.
Absolutely. Now, another thing that we saw at Computex, and has been a discussion that we've had quite a few times, is the new sleep states for Haswell, and the question as to whether or not your power supply is going to be able to handle it. Now, we got two announcements at Computex, SeaSonic and OCZ. Honestly, I found the OCZ one more interesting because some of their PSUs from like back in 2009 actually have no problem with a half or a hundredth of an amp on the 12-volt whale, that they will still run. Now, a lot of the other ones we've been seeing, there's been some warnings that, hey, you're probably going to want to upgrade to one of our newer PSUs because otherwise you're going to need to disable those new sleep states. So the idea that OCZ has been doing this, from the beginning, and, well, by that I mean PC Power and Cooling has been providing decent power supplies for a long time. So it's really nice to see that, for the most part, if you bought a relatively decent, high-powered OCZ silencer Mark II or Mark III, you're going to be good to go. Now, SeaSonic, on the other hand, is showing off a bunch of new ones, up to and including a 1200 watt, which is 80-plus platinum rated. So that should be interesting, although, even at that point, as we've seen, you don't really end up saving that much money on your power bill with the 92% efficiency, but on the other hand, it is good to know that at least you're trying. The Bronze Evo Edition is going to be a little bit smaller, 750 or 850 watt, which is probably more in line with what most people are going to want. They're not going to need 1200 watts unless they're Alan and he's doing some car repairs. But if you check out those posts, you can also see our updates for Be Quiet, Corsair, EnterMax, and as I said, SeaSonic. So you can get an idea if you are going to upgrade. Are you looking at getting a new PSU, or is that one you bought a while back going to be enough to do it?
Yeah, make sure to check with your PSU manufacturer, though, because there are quite a few PSUs that are compliant with the new power states. I know I have an old Galaxy. What does it say? EnterMax Galaxy 1250, and EnterMax is saying that it'll work, and that's about the 2008 2009 time frame too. I think 2010, but some of this PSU stuff might just be marketing. I mean, just check with your manufacturer before you go out and say, "Oh, I need to buy a new PSU." If you have a good PSU, and they're a pretty hefty amount of money to spend, that's going to be a good amount of what you spend on your system.
Yeah, so. and the electricity savings are not going to be a whole lot. So you might just, if you find you do have problems, go into the BIOS and disable these low power states that take up 0.05 amps at max. And, just enjoy a nice, stable system without spending another $150 on a power supply. Intel hates me. Sense. They hate me with saying that.
Well, I think this C6 and C7, you're going to see, though, there's a real savings there comes with the laptops and with the NUC type systems. That's really where those come into play. On a desktop, I don't let my desktop hibernate. Most people most power users probably aren't going to, let alone sleep, because there's so many issues you have when you're recovering from sleep or hibernate on a power system. So, I really don't see those. They're making a big hype about it because they can, and that's how they can sell more PSUs because they say, "Oh, your computer's going to blow up if you don't support this," whatever. So just take that all with a grain of salt. It is marketing speak. It's a way for them to sell. It's a way for the PSU makers to really bank on the Haswell launch. Is what it comes down to, partially. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Wow, it's a decent soapbox to be on. So, Josh,
Me?
What do you think about this new GTX Titan Hyper Ultra Mega Compu Ultra Global Edition card?
What are you talking about?
The return of the extra long names of the qualified PC.
Dear Lord,
GPUs.
Who's making that? Look at the size of that thing.
Yeah.
All kinds of tubes running out of like a Frankenstein. You're gonna go and elevate it up to the lightning, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah, because
why
we could have the Titan
running,
Ultra Lightning Edition too.
They're,
Titan Ultra Lightning Edition LE.
Well, it's like the old ATI, the X1900 XTX.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they didn't tack on Ultra behind it. I'm sure NVIDIA would have been very happy.
But it's going to make your reviewing life a nightmare now, because you're never going to really be sure whether a card is better or worse than one with a higher number, depending on what sort of alphabet soup it has tacked onto the
it's
back.
kind of like Gigabyte and their motherboard naming scheme. Though, if you really know about it, it's logical, but boy, it's long and it's just kind of silly. I don't know.
At least they're a little closer to engineer speak than these are.
They've
improved. Gigabyte's actually improved it with the new line, with the Z87 lines. So they've actually divided it up into separate bins now, instead of having the UD 5, 3, 2, 1 ABCD thing.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that people are trying to put out high-end things and add numbers to it and letters for more money. You should do an equation for how much more extra money it is for numbers versus letters.
And now tubes.
I don't know. I'm not convinced with this video card though. It's that it looks like, the way that they designed it with the water block, it looks like they were trying to go phase change going on it, because they actually put, if you notice on the picture of the card, on the tubes coming out of, they actually have neoprene insulation over the tubes, which you don't need that unless you're running sub ambient temperatures, because you'll start getting condensation on the water tubes. So that's all marketing. I mean, that really is. And I thought I saw something in that article saying it was going to be a bit slower than a normal Titan. I don't know. It was the way that they phrased things in the articles, or not in the article, but in the press release, seemed kind of odd to me. So,
well, there's going to be a little bit of space in terms of performance between the $650 GTX 780 and then the $1,000 Titan. So, manufacturers and partners have a few things to do in that area to increase performance of the GTX 780, add things, make it faster, and still be well short of the GTX Titan at $1,000.
Yeah.
I still wish I had one, but, if wishes were fishes, we would all have nets, or beggars were horses,
Or
anyway.
a 1080p Oculus VR Rift.
I guess that, what's his bucket? The Ginger, who was absent. He got to see this.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't make his nausea any less, but it sure looked better.
Yeah, it got rid of the screen door effect that they described.
Yeah, doesn't look like, looking at my kids out the back while the mosquitoes are carrying them away.
But it's going to mean each eye gets 960 by 1080, and, essentially he said unless he was looking at like a white wall, there was absolutely none of what was sort of interfering with his enjoyment for the first one, which did not have a resolution of anywhere near that high. And of course, the other nice thing was that they were taking a look at the Unreal Engine 4 with it, as opposed to a little game where they sort of reached out to touch things. So we're all very, very jealous of that Ginger, and probably can, since they're going to end up playing with one sooner or later, I'm sure. Just like they play with high-res monitors. You may have noticed a few deals from Logic Buy that we've posted recently, and a couple of people said, well, why do I want to pay for a nice Dell monitor when there's such a thing as Monoprice? Another one that Ryan got to check out at E3. He saw two brand new monitors that they're offering, a 27-incher and a 30-incher. So the 27-incher is going to be an IPS and sells for about $474 with tuning for Adobe RGB and sRGB, which is more than a little bit sexy, I would say. The 30-inch is going to be a little bit less, 390, so you can automatically assume it's going to have a less quality, or the quality of the screen is going to be a little bit less. But on the other hand, 4K resolution at 30 inches is going to be crazy. especially when you slap together a bunch of them. And last but not least is a new HDMI cable. I don't know if either of you read about the Red Mirror controller at all. I haven't.
Yeah, it makes the wire skinnier, and it exists entirely off of the power provided by the HDMI plug. And you can go for quite a long way, something like 30 feet with them without a loss of quality. Ryan shows us the difference between a regular HDMI cable and this special one. So it's nice, but it's going to be a little bit more expensive. They don't tell us exactly how much, but it's going to be up there.
They're probably using some kind of special blended copper with it too, I would think.
Well, it's going to be less than that Denon Cat 6 cable that they sold for, what, $450 for 3 feet?
I think it was about that, yeah.
Yeah. Probably less.
I don't think it was worth it. I don't think that individually massaging the copper ions really helped your speeds at all. But it made for great marketing speak.
Sure did.
Now, the next sort of interesting bit, at least, that Ryan got to see, and none of us did, was a presentation from NVIDIA. And they are proclaiming that they are remaining devoted to gaming on a PC, even if they are working on Shield and a couple little online innovations, like, say, Grid. And they did some interesting comparisons between themselves and AMD. They took 143 relatively recent AAA games and sort of suggested that the adoption of NVIDIA's technologies were vastly larger than the adoption of AMD's technologies, especially when they dumped the multi-monitor gaming, because they didn't really feel that changed the game much. I can't imagine why NVIDIA would do that. It's not like they were playing catch-up to AMD to get multi-monitor technology working on a single graphics card. No, were they? But either of you have any sort of thoughts, not so much about necessarily their stance on PC gaming, but they're looking at these new ways of trying to get people gaming, be it Shield, be it Grid, or be it their belief that the new consoles are actually a win for NVIDIA somehow.
You know, I think that NVIDIA was taken a little bit by surprise by how aggressive AMD was with their developer relations, their bundle packages, and all that. And they were kind of left flat on their feet earlier this year. And so they kind of had to regain their reputation of being, you know, kind of the top partner for developers. They support all these games. You know, for a while there, we didn't see as many, you know, the way it used to, you know, the way it should be played, the way it's meant to be played.
Yeah.
The way it's meant to be played. Gosh. You know, obviously NVIDIA has failed on their developer relations, if I can't even remember their acronym.
Then again, they're pumping out the new Assassin's Creed that's coming out, the new Witcher, the new Batman, and 2 or 3 other sort of AAA games that they're claiming to get a win on.
And you can't blame NVIDIA. They are a nimble company, and they act far more nimble than their size usually kind of gives them right to. But yeah, they kind of changed their ways. They saw the kind of market share gains that AMD saw with the Never Settle bundle, 1, 2, now onto 3, whatever. So yeah, they're trying to get back into the game, and I think they're going to do fine.
It's not just the bundling, though. It is the pricing. AMD's graphics pricing is a lot. It's a lot better than NVIDIA's. I mean, the fact that NVIDIA's latest 770 and 7080 cards are at a premium over the 680 is, I mean, in my mind, it's preposterous. 770 should be a direct replacement for the 670. 780 should be a direct replacement of the 680, and the Titan shouldn't be the same price as the dual-on-one card. I mean, that's. I don't. I think that pricing model is going to hurt them in the long term. I mean, you know, yes, people will spend the money for it, but you're not going to get market share with that, especially when AMD is undercutting them, and AMD can, has proven they can afford to undercut them and still make money off of it. Yes, they won't make as much, but they're getting the bulk sales. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, because either way, we're going to win, because, hey, we're customers of NVIDIA and AMD, and if either of them come out with faster, cheaper graphics cards, it's all good for us. And so now that we've talked about PCs, I guess we might as well mention that Apple had a little thing also this week. They announced their new Android operating system, it's iOS 10. It just looks a lot like Android now. And there's
here's Ken with iOS 7 on his iPhone.
There is your new iOS overlord.
Oh, it's so pretty. Wait, it's different?
Yeah, it's not 3D anymore, Josh. I guess I don't have an iPhone, so I don't know.
So, Ken, you're going to have to unmute yourself and talk about this, because you're the
only
one
guy
who
got one and
knows.
has already ripped it apart.
Yeah.
Well, so they announced new MacBook Airs with Haswell ULT parts. That's really all they said. Performance is about the same. Battery life is, I think they said 50% better, which I have yet to test, although I only have experience with a Sandy Bridge-based MacBook Air so far, because that's what I had last generation. The real cool thing is the new Mac Pro, though. What do you guys think about that form factor?
The big round thing?
The trash can?
Yeah, the trash can.
It's my I put my cigarette butts in there if I smoked, but I don't smoke.
I just don't see how it's going to be cooled.
It's going to be a great lotion container.
Yep.
I don't physics, heat, dissipation, don't.
No, it's going to be like an absolute
nightmare.
A vacuous center, not vacuous, but empty, and probably have some cooling fins going in there, and a fan that does the whole convection up of air and cooling, and because when you look at the pictures of that,
Dyson
the top
air pumps in
is
it.
just a grill.
Yeah.
What's that?
One of those new Dyson Airflow.
Exactly.
Fan blades.
It's funny how much it looks like a Dyson product. That's just way
really
too
does.
spot on.
Maybe the whole thing, the inside of it spins. Instead of the fan spinning, the whole computer spins.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like those rotary engines of World War II when the aircraft.
Or
Yep.
The Wankel?
Yeah.
So something
Not
starts
the
levitating
ankle.
under your desk. It's your MacBook Pro.
Okay, I'd be into that. I like that. If it was like a centrifuge and rotated around, I'd be into that. Yeah. Okay.
Just think of the fun your cats would have with it.
Yeah.
And each one has a small pinch of Steve Jobs ashes
Yes.
in the center to help cooling.
Hey, you know what? Maybe that's what makes the MacBook Air hard drives faster, is a pinch of Steve Jobs' death dust.
I don't know. I didn't find any dust in it today when I took it apart. I could be wrong.
You didn't snort it when you cracked open the case?
That's not the secret sauce that made the SSD go faster?
Yes,
It's
embedded in. It's actually embedded in a controller chip. They gave Marvell and Samsung each got a little bucket of it, and they sprinkle it into the silicon when they're making the chips.
That could explain it.
So, Ken, tell us about the performance of your new MacBook Air that you picked up today.
And it's now running Windows.
Yeah, it's running Windows right now. Here, you can see it. I don't know. I haven't really tested performance that much. I got it to the office and then get it home. I got to the office, checked the controller, did a quick disk benchmark on it, took it apart because that's the thing I should do when I first get a computer, right? Take it apart.
Usually I have to put them together, but I guess same thing.
Yeah. Took it apart, installed Windows on it after that, which seems sacrilegious because I use OS X usually on my laptops, and yeah, that's about as far as I've gotten. We're going to run the entire Haswell-ish, the CPU benchmarks we introduced with our Haswell article tomorrow, so I'll have more news on that next week, I guess.
Nice.
It's just,
nice.
It's just magical. It's so magical.
So when you went in there, did they ruin your entire experience by opening the package for you?
No, but I think it was the iPhone 3G that they were doing that, and they specifically asked if I wanted to break the packaging. Like,
do you want to do it? Do you want to release
no,
the special
I don't care.
fumes?
If you have to activate the damn phone, just open it. I don't care. But Apple, I guess.
You know, did you not read the article about the guy who's complaining about how the Apple Store ruined his entire experience because even opening up the package is like going to the 9th level of Nirvana because it's so well designed.
I hate people.
Package.
I hate people so much.
Hate. Anyway, shall we move on, Ken? Because
yeah, I got nothing.
I think people are just falling asleep. It's been kind of a strange week in terms of content. We got plenty of news, but nothing that's really new news and interesting. And certainly we have the end of Computex. We had E3 coming up. We've covered those things. Everybody hates Xbox One. Everybody loves PS4. You can go on Imager.com and see all the lovely pictures that people are making. And it's just fanboyism run amok in the past week. And so, do we really want to talk about that, Jeremy?
No.
Okay.
I certainly don't want to hear about it anymore. I've listened enough.
No más, por
I just
favor.
can't stand it.
All right.
I can't stand it anymore.
Well, then let's move on to our hardware and software picks.
Which are obviously not Xbox One.
Yeah, Ryan has stolen several Xbox Ones and some of the newly redesigned 360s. He's sitting on them in front of E3 at the taxi line, but it's kind of funny because it's called the taxi line, but there aren't actually any taxis there.
There is a line, though.
Actually, Josh, talking about the 360, did you hear that Microsoft's answer to not having a 24/7 connection for your Xbox One is to buy a 360? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I think someone has been smoking the crack.
Yeah. Well, it was a better response than I was expecting, which was just shut up.
They're actually coming out with a new version of the 360. That's what I've heard. So.
That whole thing is weird because at the press conference on Monday, they said available today. I've heard nothing about it. No price.
I have seen it nowhere.
Yeah, it's real strange to me.
Yeah. So while I like the kind of redesign, it's just going to be mostly cosmetic. I don't think they're going to do anything with the motherboard, Connect, nothing, as far as I know. But hey, they're kind of like Sony was about, 7 years ago? And Sony has kind of woken up and saying, you know what, these are consumers. What they want really is important to us because we have competition. And we learned that in the PS3 days.
Much to their dismay.
Yeah. But, that was Ryan. He likes being in the taxi line with no actual taxis. Jeremy.
Well, I came up with yet another use for ye old can of air. One of the ladies at work, after deciding to save her entire wedding plans, lists, gift registry, everything to the C drive of her work computer, well, you can imagine what happened. It started making horribly clicking noises and wouldn't work. So I tossed her in the freezer for a little while with a towel and some silica gel to make sure that it didn't start to get condensation on it. And after about 20 minutes, popped it out, and lo and behold, it was clicking a little bit, but a lot less than it was before, and I could start to suck some of the data that she decided to put there, because, it's always smart to take all of your very important data and only have one copy of it. Except that sucker was getting really warm really quick. So, not feeling like getting up and doing anything about it too much,
You turned the can upside down and froze the crap out of it, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And you know what? It worked.
Yes, it does. Because that CO2 coming out, or whatever is in there, gets cold.
It's cold. So, yeah, that was enough to save the lady's wedding. And, well, I wouldn't recommend doing this unless, of course, it's the last-ditch effort, I can say that it actually did work more or less and keep it going for a little bit. So there you go.
Very nice. I've been working with a few CPUs last couple of weeks, and I had originally done a review of this board, and it scored pretty highly. I liked it, but when I got the latest Richland processors, updated the firmware to it, the BIOS, it really woke up. It really turned out to be a tremendous motherboard, and for only $120. There's a lot of value in that. And combine that with one of the latest Richland processors, overclock that to 4.8, which it did solid for many, many days in a row of work. It's going to make a great little machine. Still supports Crossfire. Doesn't support SLI, which is kind of a bummer. But, I think once that AMD finally comes out with their new drivers that handles the frame metering a lot better than what they had before, it's going to be a good little basis for a system, especially with 8 SATA 6 ports, 4 USB 3.0 ports, really good thermals, good power consumption, all these things, and just cheap motherboard. So fun to own if you're kind of a budget enthusiast.
Do you have to flash it to get Richland to work on it, or will it post right away?
No, I think it posts, but you really need to flash it to get the full meal deal out of Richland. Next, Maury. No, Alan. He needs cold medicine because he's sick. He passed out on the couch and just woke up in a pool of sweat.
I'm telling you, it's cheesecake withdrawal. It's not sick.
Yeah, could be.
Bad cheesecake. Yes, my pick of the week is a new water pump. There you go. See it. It's a SwiftTech MCP. 35X. This beast will do. I mean, it's a little pricey. It was about $90, $80, $90 at Micro Center. But it'll do almost 5 gallons per minute, which is an extreme flow rate, and that's 12. They don't do anything with the voltage, just 12 volts. What they do is they increase the wattage and the amperage, so it's actually using 18 watts of power to get the almost 5 gallons per minute. That's going to be going in my computer soon. Hopefully, along with my my GPU water block and all that stuff. So,
and if you ever find yourself in a sinking boat, come in handy there too.
As far as how loud it is, I'm not sure how loud it is, but based on I've been using Liang DDC pumps for a while. The lower rated ones, that is not the super speed ones, but they're not loud at all. I mean, I would think that this pump wouldn't be too incredibly loud. Usually you can't hear the flow. If you hear gurgling in a pump, usually it's because you have trapped air in there. You just wiggle it around to get the air out. Because
that's what I do. I don't own water
to get the air out. Yeah. But usually with pumps, if you have some buzzing in them, if you put either double-sided, you can get double-sided tape at Home Depot and use that for padding, or you put on a neoprene sheet when you put it in your case. Usually that'll take care of any kind of noise you get from the pump. If you are getting pump noise, that's a bad sign the pump's going, usually. So, but I would assume the pump, it's not too loud because it's rated for, what is it? It's sorry, I'm trying to look up the RPMs. Don't see the RPMs on here. I'm not sure what the RPMs are, but I would assume it's probably running.
I want the one with the bigger GBs.
The big GBs.
The bigger GBs.
There are no GBs on pumps. Sorry, dude.
Aww.
No gigabytes. No gigabytes. But yeah, so that's my pick.
Now you've made Josh sad.
Oh, sorry, Josh.
Sad.
It's all about the gallons per minute.
It's true. And Scott decided to throw in a little thing that if you keep your eye on our page, there will sooner or later be a post on this, which is a new Alienware X51 desktop machine, which for a mere $1,500 would get you a Haswell 4770, 8 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte hard drive, and a non-mobile GTX 670. Which, to be honest, isn't really that much more of a premium than you would get if you were to pay for it piece by piece. So that's also something to check out, and make sure to keep an eye on the front page, because sooner or later there'll be a bit more detail on it.
Look at the size of that thing.
It's huge.
Thick.
It's got GBs.
It does have GBs.
It's got plenty of GBs.
And it's probably got a glowing alien on the front of it, too. That helps it speed.
I think you're safe to bet that. Dude, you're getting a Dell.
Dude, you're getting an Alienware Dell. It's even better.
Yes, but I think it is probably time to bring this travesty to an end for yet another week. So just to make sure that you guys are aware, Ryan is still paying for 188.38 PC per. We're very disappointed that you guys are not leaving us rude messages and would like to see that change in the near future. You can also email us directly at podcast@pcper.com, which is used but is nowhere near as funny as leaving us a voice message. Make sure that you catch up on previous episodes as well as this episode sometime tomorrow when it gets posted at pcper.com/podcast. And if you like the tweeters, you can follow Ryan at Ryan Shrout or PCPer at PCPer on twitter.com. But, apart from that, I think we've killed this show for yet another week. So, with that, I am Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Maury Titleman.
Bye.
Yay!
And there's Ken.